In Little Nightmares 2, you play as a small kid named Mono who's trying to survive traveling through a place called the Pale City. Early on, you meet another character named Six, who was actually the protagonist of the first game in the series. These two spend the entire game working together, and as such, Mono or the player will basically start to form like a bond as you go through and accomplish things and help and save each other. Now, for the people who've played the first game, you know that Six isn't entirely normal, and she's done some wild shit to say the least.
Yo, am I just sucking the life force out of him? Damn, bro.
But Six isn't the only one that has crazy ass powers, because in this game you can see that Mono has the ability to interact with televisions across the city. So each time you come across one of these televisions, it looks almost like Mono's drawn to it, or that something in the TV is calling to him. So multiple times he'll travel inside one of these TVs, and he'll end up in a hallway where he has to walk down and try to reach a door at the end of it. Every time you start to get close to this door, Six actually pulls you out of the TV, and you could tell by her reaction that she's actually a little bit afraid of what's going on. And you'll see this more so later as well. Now, this game has an extremely ominous tone throughout the entirety of the game, but when you get in this hallway, the music cuts out, or it starts to build this like tense sound in the background that makes the already ominous tone hit even more. It makes us feel like somewhere you're not supposed to be, or that there's a looming threat. So at the point of the game that I want to talk about today, or that we want to talk about today, we get to the point where we get to see what's behind that door. And the revelation of what it is and how it all ties into the end of the game and how it builds on the Little Nightmares story and lore in general, I think is what makes this reveal so memorable. So you open the door, this tall, disproportionate man walks out, and he immediately starts chasing you. Mono gets pulled out of the TV. Six is tripping. She's looking at Mono like, bro, we need to run. But Mono's staring at the TV like almost like he's entranced. Then the tall guy who was chasing you pushes against the screen and comes out of the TV like the Ring. Six dips, and Mono follows right after, because this is wild. So while you're running from this man, you notice that he's not in a rush, and he's not chasing after you as aggressively as the other bosses in this game. Like, we've seen people that can stretch their heads through vents to try to kill us, but he's just calmly walking and like flash stepping towards you slowly. He's just a chill guy. So you run from this man, and eventually you get to a hiding spot, and you and Six have to hide in separate spots, which you've done plenty of times through the game. But in this case, you can immediately tell something's off by the way the tall man enters the room. And Six obviously could tell this as well, because she immediately tries to run, and when she does, she gets grabbed. So, something to note here, which may be just a English teacher moment, but when he goes and grabs Six, Six reaches out to Mono, and Mono's under the bed like cowering, basically doesn't respond to her. Now throughout the game, every point where you two have to help each other, like climb something or jump across a ledge and like grab the other person or something like that, the person will stand there with their hand reaching out, waiting for you to come and help them or like assist them. So I think this gameplay mechanic being reinforced through the game makes this moment hit harder, because you're essentially seeing a cue to go like help this person, but you as your character cannot respond because you're so crippled with fear. And on top of this, with you not responding at all to Six, it can be seen as double disrespect, because she's basically been saving you from these TVs the entire game. So when Six is taken, you see a shadow of her left behind in the room, or like a copy of her, And we believe these are called echoes from what we've seen just on the internet and stuff like that. And you can basically see them as like someone's soul or like a part of someone's soul. So you can see this as when 6 was pulled away. Some part of her was left behind there with Mono. Now, mind you, everything that I've just said, just from this tiny 10-minute section, has been conveyed entirely with no dialogue. So, Mono makes his way back to the TV. He sees 6 calling for help from the TV. And when he tries to pull her out, the tall man just pulls her back in, and then re-emerges from the TV again to start the chase back up. Another credit to the developers here is that the way the environment reacts just in the tall man's presence, everything slows down as if he's warping space and time around him, and everything just starts floating and he starts damaging things just from his presence alone. And you can tell just by this that he's something significantly more powerful than what we've seen before, because usually you're just facing people with knives or people that can like stretch or have like distorted limbs or something, but this man is like Dr. Manhattan basically. So once the chase ends, Mono walks out into the city streets and he's staring down this massive tower that's been looming over you basically the entire game. Now, you know this tower is important from everything you see, but it isn't explicitly explained what it's doing, but you can piece together what it's doing based on the stuff that the game gives you. And throughout the game, you see people that are like glued to TVs and just obsessed with watching these TVs around the city to the point where they'll literally kill themselves just to keep staring at the screen. And putting 2 and 2 together, you can see that these TV signals are coming from this broadcast tower. So, being as the TVs are linked to the broadcast tower and 6 was pulled into a TV, you could assume that she's been brought to that tower for whatever reason. Now, this part of the game is where Little Nightmares 2 really starts to show its ass. The tall man appears in front of Mono in the city streets, and it's raining heavily, it's dark, the lighting is really setting the tone here. Mono drops to his knees, takes his hat off, which is extremely important to his character. It's one of the main collectibles of the game, and he just lets it float away. Almost looking like he's just gonna give up and just submit to this tall dude that's coming after him. But then he stands up and stands on fucking business. These two start clashing their powers in the city, and them interacting with one another or fighting one another just causes the entire city to warp around them. And in this clash, Mono is just ripping this dude apart. Like, he's destroying this man. Like, it doesn't even look fair in some cases. And after this, Mono flexes even further by basically warping the ground beneath him on some Thanos shit and pulling himself to the final act at the tower. This whole set piece, like the soundtrack here, the lighting here, the heavy rain, the payoff of Mono's abilities that have been set up throughout the entire game, the emotion conveyed between Mono and 6, all done with zero dialogue, is why I think this game is a master of visual storytelling. It's crazy how much they accomplish without saying anything and how much story they get across with just environmental storytelling. And honestly, this game had a character with zero dialogue that became one of my favorite characters in gaming, and that's Mono. But anyway, let's get to the final act.
So in the final act, your final task is saving 6 as she's still trapped in the signal tower, which to me is by far one of the crazier set pieces in this game, as it's a fully distorted maze-like area with nothing but like infinite staircases and a bunch of doors that just loop you back to the same area. Now, the way Mono traverses through the maze is by following a familiar sound of a music box. After following the sound, you run into the final boss, a mutated version of 6 in which the tower uses her own music box to entrap her. Now, something to note about this is that it's hinted that the tower uses shared memories from each individual. Not only do you see this with 6 and her music box, but you'll see it with Mono when attempting to save 6 as well. Now, to save 6, Mono must destroy the music box to get 6 back to her normal self, which you do by smashing the music box using a very familiar axe that's stuck in the door. This to me symbolizes the memory of when you originally saved 6 at the intro of the game, where you use that same exact axe that's lodged into the door to get her out of the room that she's originally trapped in by the trapper. Now, after destroying the music box and getting 6 back to her normal self, this seems to cause the signal to lose control and power, which then forces it to reveal its true form, which is this nasty compiled mass of nothing but flesh and eyes. Now, this also will explain the little set pieces throughout the game where there's constant drawings and kind of like chalked out areas of just nothing but a giant eyeball. Now, as you're making your final last great escape from the signal tower, this giant mountain of flesh is just tearing its way through and destroying the area. Now, Mono, my man, was almost at the finish line, and this man does the stereotypical horror movie bullshit where this man stumbled at the very last second. And as usual, as you see throughout the game, 6 is out here finessing her way through this obstacle course like it ain't shit, leaving us in the dust. Now, when you think all hope is lost because the bridge to the only exit has broken, Mono takes a leap of faith inspired by 6, who's at the other end reaching out her hand to grab you. Just like Jameer stated earlier, this is a constant show of how they've helped one another and formed their bond. Mono takes that leap and 6 catches you, saving you from near death. Or so you think. This bitch pulls the craziest betrayal I've ever seen in any game. This is some old school Lion King type shit. She had this man hanging there for dear life and just dropped him.
Long live the king.
I couldn't handle that scene as a kid in Lion King, and she just brought up some old suppressed trauma. This bitch then does a supervillain walk towards the exit without a care in the world. When I say I've never felt so betrayed by a studio to make such a twist ending like this, I mean it. And the crazy part is, we aren't even done yet. They drive that nail of betrayal so much deeper when they force you to watch the scene of Mono alive in this abyss with that flesh-like monster just distraught, walking around endlessly until he finds an empty chair waiting there. This man Mono takes a seat in that chair, and you watch as the flesh just closes in around him. A bunch of eyeballs just start popping up and just start staring at him. Mono was so broken in this scene that it could do nothing but break your own damn heart, okay? These eyes just staring at him are the most eerie thing you can ever imagine. And not only does it really like sink in that this man Mono is gonna be here for quite a while, they let that sink in even more when they turn around and they force you to watch time skips of Mono slowly aging in that chair for years until you find out that this man Mono is the Thin Man himself, that has been chasing you and fucking shit up throughout this entire game. When I say my mind was blown on how they managed to make all this come full circle, I have no words that can explain it besides the fact that I was sitting there in those end credits just contemplating every decision I made throughout that entire game. Now, if you played the game and you collected all the glitches, aka the echoes that Jameer was talking about earlier, this leads to the true ending of the game. The true ending of the game, you see 6 is phasing out of a TV, and this shows that she now has Mono's powers. Then she's struggling to contain Mono's powers and accidentally creates an echo of herself. Now this echo stops to look at a page on the floor, which leads to the original ship that you are at in the first Little Nightmares game. Man, those short 5 minutes put a lot into perspective and ended so many questions, and it showed that the only reason why 6 turns around to save you in the first place is because at the end of the game, the exit itself is like a TV signal. Now, 6 can't travel through these because she doesn't have Mono's powers. So the only reason why she turned around to try and save him in the first place was just so she can absorb his powers like she does in the first game, just so that she can get out. Now Mono's over here in an endless cycle of getting betrayed and turning into the Thin Man to stop the cycle by getting his younger self to free him, so he can either get revenge on 6 or break the cycle by just stopping his younger self. Not really sure, but whatever the hell it is, I hope he gets revenge on 6 in the end, because, oh man, I'm still pissed about that ending. Now, 6 stealing some of Mono's powers would also explain why Mono, as the Thin Man, wasn't able to beat his younger self, as he was drained of some of his abilities.
Now, mind you, every single thing that we just said, everything about this campaign, all this speculation about the narrative, all these theories, comes from a game that does not have a single line of dialogue. This game masters show, don't tell in a way that I really haven't seen before in any other games. And honestly, I would be thrilled to see more games honestly take this method of just showing you things in the world rather than having like 30-minute cutscenes trying to explain a narrative, because you're getting just as deep a story, characters that are arguably just as fleshed out in a game that doesn't have those 45-minute cutscenes or any interruptions in gameplay. Everything that they have to tell you about the narrative is portrayed through the gameplay and the environment and the level design and the sound design, everything that developers put in to make this world of theirs. So anyway, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And even if you didn't like it, I mean, subscribe anyway for the culture. And yeah,